Me? All right. Well, here we are, you guys. Thank you so much for coming back for part 2 of Get a Yes. I'm really excited about tonight's training, excited about what we've got going, loving the feedback. Just kind of a couple housekeeping items real quick. I will be again posting this recording, and I'm going to post kind of a review sheet as well and the slides after the training. I'm also going to ask everybody to take just a quick survey. I promise you, it's going to be like 5 questions. We're just trying to dial in some of this information. And one of my plan is to go ahead and kind of do another one of these video trainings, but kind of condensed based on some of the feedback you've been giving us. So it's a little bit quicker and kind of more to the point. So I'm really excited about that. That's really good, Eric. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad you used it already with some success. That's fantastic. So let's jump into the content tonight. So what I want to do first, I just want to give us some perspective, if I can, or just kind of a quick review of where we were yesterday. Why this training matters. There was a statement that I made yesterday that talked about how a lot of times when we think about inviting or these things, we kind of have this idea in our mind that to be successful, we have to be a professional salesperson. But you really don't. In fact, that's not really what coaching is. Coaching is developing the skills and of really just helping discover a need, identify a solution, and then asking for a decision to start. And there is a skill set around that. But it's not about being a professional salesperson per se. Now, the skills we've kind of identified, we broke them down to this 5-phase inviting process, right? Phase 1, form a relationship. Phase 2, identify a need. Those are the 2 things we talked about yesterday. Today, now we're at 3, 4, 5. Share info and get feedback, assume success, and then the follow-up. And we're going to walk right through this today. Hopefully, this will kind of help complete the picture. The point when we talk about these 5 phases, the reason why we use the word phases, is because you'll have people at different stages, different phases of the process here, and that's fine. As long as you know what the phases are and kind of what the goals are in each phase, when you get a yes, it moves you on to that next phase. And you can just work people with whatever phase they're in and just kind of keep working through them until they get that yes, and then that opens up the next phase for them. And that's the point of this, is about meeting people where they're at. It's about listening to people and connecting with people. It's about discovering a need that they've got and then helping them have the courage to get started, because that's what coaches, really, that's the first step that coaches do. Okay? So again, last night, just a quick review, we talked about forming a relationship. We talked about this is important because it establishes your intent by focusing on the person and putting that relationship first. We shared some best practices around it real quick, right? People you know, so hey, how's the family doing? People you know, maybe but not well. Hey, I saw you on Facebook, haven't chatted in a while. How have you been? Maybe people that you don't know that you contact, right? Hey, I just saw your post and want to say thanks for sharing that. And then maybe I start the forming process of finding out their family, their occupation, the things they do for fun. Or maybe people reach out to you, right? We say, hey, thanks for reaching out. Always like getting to know new friends. Tell me about yourself. We go into forming. But the point is if we form that relationship first, that becomes the bedrock for everything else. As we form that relationship, then we look for opportunities to maybe talk about losing weight, getting fit, getting healthy, maybe even entrepreneurism. And then we ask them for a few minutes. Hey, you know what? I want to reach out real quick about something I'm doing or something you said kind of rung a bell for me. I've got, some things that might help you. Do you have a few minutes? Do you have just a few minutes just to talk with me about this, to see if there might be a fit there for you, or to see if there's something I can maybe help you with? That key transition piece of saying, hey, do you have just a few minutes, right? And then that takes us into then identifying that need, where we really go through those 7 need discovery questions, and then restate back to them what we heard to ensure we're understanding it, and then reconvey that understanding back to them. Those 7 questions were real simple. The first one was something that kind of frames the discussion, right? Kind of says, hey, we're going to talk about this. So like from a health and fitness standpoint, what are you facing right now? Then we go to question number 2. And question number 2 is all about starting to understand how big the problem is. What's the problem and how significant is it, right? And so it's something like, well, how's that a problem for you? Why is that a goal for you? When they share you what they're facing, you ask that question to get an idea of how big it is or how significant the problem is. And that takes us to the 3rd question. And the 3rd question, now this is where we start to get a little bit deeper with them, but we want to understand that internal impact. And so we know what the problem is now. We know it's kind of a significant or a big problem with them. And so we ask them, well, how's that impacting you? And the goal of that then is to get that feedback about how it's impacting them internally. Remember, like I told you, that might be one where you have to kind of work a little bit with them on that. But if you can understand that, that's going to be a real key in helping you match them with the right solution and provide the right support for them as a coach. That led us to question number 4, because inside out, I mean, those are internal impacts. Well, what are the external impacts? Okay, so we ask them who or what else does it impact outside of them. And this is a good one, because this is a real good source of motivation for people sometimes, right? You find people that sometimes feel like their own needs can be selfish or whatever, but when you kind of make them think about the things that are impacting them or how it's impacting other people, boy, that motivation level starts to rise. And it's a good thing for you to understand as you look to match them with the right solution. And we went to question number 5, which kind of frames now, okay, so now we understand the problem. We understand that's a big problem. We know how it's impacting you, how it's impacting other people around you. What we want to know now is, well, what's the desired outcome then? Okay, what do you want to do? I want to lose some weight. Well, how much weight? Or what's the goal that we're going for? What would success look like for you? And that's a really good conversation. It's a fun one to have. And then as we find out what success looks like, chances are they've tried to do it before, or maybe so we ask them something like, what stopped you from succeeding with this before? Or if they've never tried it before, it's like, well, what do you think would keep you from being successful? But we want to we do that question to identify what the constraints might be that we need to be aware of as you're matching your needs with the solutions. And then finally, we end with question number 7. If you were successful with this, what would you gain? And the purpose behind that is to create vision and excitement, and to help them now start connecting connecting to what the future change could be like for them, how that would impact them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so after we go through those 7 questions, right? Again, remember, each one of those times we've got a yes or kind of an affirmative engagement. We kind of will go to the next question, the next question. After we've gone through all 7 of those to get all that information, we now have a really good understanding of where this person's at, what their needs are, what's really going to be motivating them, what's most important to them. And so what we want to do then is restate it back to them. We want to just let them know, hey, thanks for sharing that with me. Now, just to be sure that I understand, what I heard was that you want to lose 15 pounds because it's going to help you feel more confident and have more energy to be with your kids. And you've got a lot on your plate right now, so you're nervous about it because finding the time to go after this goal you think might be hard for you. Did I miss anything important to you? And again, we asked that last question just to make sure that we've kind of recapsulated it. And again, whatever they say, if they say something else after you ask that question, really put that to near the top of the list, because that's going to be a real salient one that they're going to come back to. But chances are, if you've done those other steps, they're going to say, no, I think you've got it, which then allows us to go to the next phase. Now, this slide right here is one I really want you to kind of understand. When we talk about why we do this training, right, why we're going through this yesterday, the whole point of yesterday was this graph. I made that statement to you guys that people change for pain or gain, okay? And what I meant by that, I want to make sure I'm clear on that, is that the need or the gain that they want has to be greater than the cost it is to them. So if you look at this little graph, right, we have that cost of starting, that cost of the challenge pack, that $199 for the All Access Challenge Pack, that cost, or maybe it's an emotional cost, or maybe it's whatever that cost is for them to get started, right? And then what we're doing as we're going through and discovering that need with them, we're actually moving up that diagonal line right there. And as we help highlight and help them identify and help see what that cost to them for that need or that goal they have, as that gets higher, they become more and more motivated to buy, to get started, to go with what you're saying. And so that's part of the process. That's what this 5 phases is all about, and especially those first 2 phases that we talked about yesterday. All right, so now that brings us to tonight's training, okay? We'll talk about that. Everyone was at yesterday's link. I thought I had updated that, but okay, hopefully they can switch on over. If someone's on the Facebook page, just let them know that we're over here. Now, I wanted to go on a link where we could all get together and be on the same one. So anyway, that's a quick review of yesterday. Now we're at today. Okay, today we're going to talk about phase 3, 4, and 5. And last night I left off with this kind of little teaser. After we've gone through and kind of identified the need and we've asked that restating question, right? Did I miss anything that's important to you? Once they say, yeah, I think you got it, then we kind of think about, okay, well, now we need to give them some information. So to transition to that, it's really, really simple. We say, hey, let me share something with you real quick that's helped a lot of people in your similar situation and see what you think. All right, let me just show you this real quick and get your thoughts on it. Maybe let's see if it's a fit for you. right? And now we're into this third phase, which is sharing information and then getting feedback. And that's what tonight is all about, 3, 4, and 5. We're going to start here. So when we talk about sharing information, right, and then getting feedback, here's the deal, you guys. Again, I think that one of the things when I work with coaches is they feel like there's some magical statement or way of presenting it that will that they have to figure out to be successful with it. But it's just like the other two pieces. It's talking to them. Okay, so when you're sharing information about your challenge group or challenge pack, here's a couple things I want you to just keep in mind as guidelines. First, you're going to have to explain what it is. I think that kind of goes without saying. But think about explaining what it is in this context. I need to explain kind of what the contents are. What is it that I'm promoting, or the solution I'm providing? Then what's the experience that they can expect to get from it? And then what's the value in it for them? And I'm not talking value from a money standpoint. I'm talking value in it from the benefits that they would get, and the things that will happen to them, and how it will be there, from the nutrition and the simplification of the portion controls, and the group and the accountability and the peer support, and all that awesome value that you as a coach, and all those things that come into play. And then also, then at the end, the offer and the price, okay? That they need to know all of those things when they're making their decision. Now, here's the thing I'm going to recommend, is that you use tools. Okay, so for example, right now, if you're promoting the All Access Challenge Pack, or maybe the Core to Force Challenge Pack, or whatever you're going to look at, be aware, keep track of maybe some videos that will explain the Challenge Pack, or that will explain, maybe the program, or that, so that you can, when you talk about what it is, you can share pieces of information with them, and then you can let some of the tools do the heavy lifting. And if you're wondering where those tools are, if you go in your back office under the Sales and Marketing tab, you can go down there, and there's called Product Toolkits. And there's social media pieces in there. There's one sheets that'll explain stuff, all kinds of things that you can use to share with them for whatever situation you feel like is best for them. As you do this more, you'll kind of find tools that you like and that you kind of have confidence in. But I would really encourage you to arm yourself with tools, because that way you don't put yourself in the position of having to be the expert on every single detail. You let some of the tools do some of the heavy lifting for you. They're designed very professionally, and they'll be a great reflection on you as a coach, all right? So when we do that, again, explaining what it is, going through those 4 things, using tools. The second thing, and this is really where you're the authority on this, is your experience, or the experience of other people, the testimonials, okay? The things that you saw, the things that the value of the portion control containers, or the impact that having Shakeology was for you or for other people in simplifying nutrition, and cutting out cravings, or whatever it happens to be. Your experience needs to be part of sharing this information. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying we send them 10 messages and email it, because people aren't going to listen to that. And you're going to have to, as you do this, you'll get a feel for how you need to approach this. But think about the individual. Think about where they're at, what things they need to do. Remember, you guys, they're not getting a mortgage. They're buying a challenge pack. Right? People spend more money on garbage in a month than they will on a challenge pack. So don't feel like you're under this huge pressure cooker to just prove to them that they've got to buy this. Again, if we've done the work on those first 2 phases, when we get to this phase, now we're just informing them. Here's a solution I think is that will be best for you, and here's why. Here's what it is. Here's what we're going to do. Here's the value you're going to get out of it. Here's much it costs to get started. But boy, all of those things together, it's so easy. Let me share them a video with them to explain, get them excited about what Core to Force is. Maybe I'll share a video about Shakeology, so they kind of see all the stuff that's in it, about whatever it happens to be, right? But make sure we include then your experiences in that conversation. When you're sharing information, this will kind of be a back and forth. It's not a one-way street necessarily. You'll send stuff. They might reply. They might have questions, whatever that happens, and that's okay, because you want to share information and get feedback. A lot of times, they'll just give you feedback without you asking for it. But you might have to ask for it. We'll go over that in just a second, okay? Just keep in mind that when you're sharing information with people, and honestly, you guys, part of the reason I'm being that I'm kind of talking about this way on a higher level is I want you to go and work with your teams or with your coaches. And this is a part that really it can feel robotic, and I want to make sure that it doesn't come across as robotic. So I'm going to push you information I'm going to push you on that. Erica, the best, in my opinion, it depends what they're looking for. There are 3 videos on Shakeology that I really, really like, okay? And if you look at the Shakeology one sheet that we just came out with as part of the First 30 program, it actually lists those 3 videos right there. So go in your back office, go under the First 30 program, we'll look at the Sharing Shakeology sheet, and it will have those 3 videos right there. Okay, now, what people will need to see, okay, really are 3 things. They'll need to see, when, as you're presenting the information to them, first, that they can do it. That they have, first of all, the physical ability to do it, right? So if maybe they're really overweight, right? And they're just kind of, they really need something that's you know, not as intense to get them started. So you probably shouldn't show them a quarter force workout, right? That they're physically able to do it, and that the time commitment's there. The second thing that you're going to have to see, and that they're going to be thinking of, is that they want to do it. That the group is fun, that the solution's appealing. So again, as you're sharing the information, you're thinking. And finally, the third thing, make sure I see everybody here right here. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. And now the third thing then is that, so let me get back on this, is that the value is there. Meaning the benefits that I hope to get are greater than the cost. And so we're going to talk about, I know there's a couple people talking about cost here, and I'll talk about cost, Kristen, Heather, you guys in just a second here. But we do have to convey the value that's being there, right? We have to, I mean, everybody does that, whether I'm buying, you know, multivitamins, whether I'm buying a pencil, you know, the value of it, meaning that my need, my goal is greater than the cost associated with it. That has to be there. And there's ways to do that. So we'll talk about that in just a second, okay? Now, when we talk about how we're sharing information with people, here's the thing that I want you to remember, is that people make buying decisions on emotion much more than logic. So sometimes what I see coaches do is they come at it feeling like, if I can just prove to them with facts and with data, or if I can overload them with all this information that just shows how awesome this is, and how, you know, look at all these ingredients that are in here, and they try to logically, rationally walk them through to making a positive decision. People don't buy or make buying decisions on logic. It's emotion. And why? And the reason is, and there's research on this, and I won't get into this, but into the details, but basically it's because in every decision there's pros and cons. And so people, they can see pros and cons, and they're kind of processing this almost on an unconscious level sometimes. And so what they tend to do is just they go with what feels best to them. Does it meet my needs? Can I trust it? Can I trust this person? And they tend to let that be the deciding factor as they're weighing pros and cons. There was a study done by the Harvard Business School that says that 95% of our purchase decisions take place unconsciously, which kind of highlights that, which goes to what Mark has just said. There you go, Mark. Mark, you should be giving this presentation. Facts tell, but stories sell. So we want to remember that. So when you're sharing the information on the solution you're recommending, just make sure that you focus on the benefits more than the features, okay? The benefits more than the features. That the benefit, for example, let me do Shakeology. The features of Shakeology would be that it has phytonutrients, it has superfoods, it has over 70 different whole ingredients, that's non-GM, but that's all these other things. That's the features, okay? The benefits would be, it's clinically shown to help me lose weight. It will help me reduce cravings, right? That it helps me maintain healthy blood sugar levels. Those are benefits. There's a difference. When you focus on the benefits, there's the emotion. The features talk to the logic side of the brain, okay? The next thing you do is be encouraging and optimistic. Almost not fake but maximize. Don't be fake and phony, but kind of maximize your encouragement and optimism in your tone of voice and how you approach things, again, because it's that emotion thing that we're trying to elicit with them. When you're excited, when you're passionate, when you're optimistic, it's going to rub off on them. And then again, make sure you're sharing those experience and results. Those things are what tie the emotions to it. So when you think about now how you've been sharing the information, I want you to think about then, how have I been approaching this? Have I been trying to approach from a logic standpoint or emotion standpoint? How have I been trying to promote it? Am I trying to promote the features? Okay, and I promise you, if you're promoting the features, you'll get more cost objections than if you promote the benefits. All right. And that's where the stories come into play and all that other stuff. Am I optimistic? Am I encouraging? Or am I just kind of going through the motions with it? Those kind of pieces. Look at that when you're sharing that information. So when we get to sharing the information, let's say that we've gone through now, we've shared the information, we've shared some tools with them, they understand what the challenge pack is, they understand the benefits behind it, they can tell that I'm excited about it. Maybe they're kind of giving you some positive feedback that they're interested in it. Then you want to do this. This is, again, we're back to that yes-no thing we talked about before. The purpose now is we want them to get feedback. So we then say, after we share it to them, if they don't give it to you, okay, they might just tell you, a lot of times they will without you asking. You need to get that final feedback. So what do you think? It's a real simple question, right? I've shared it with them, and maybe they've gone back and forth, and you're kind of at the end of sharing. So what do you think? Now, a yes is like, I really like it, or, it actually looks pretty good, or, hey, you know what, I think that might work for me, or whatever version of that yes would be there. As soon as that happens, boom, we're ready to go on to the next phase, which I'll talk about in just a second, okay? Which is getting, what we call assuming success, or getting them started. But if they say no, it's like, I'm not sure, I've got this, it's kind of expensive, or whatever it happens to be. You listen to that first, and then come back to me just with a quick question. Say, all right, well, what do you like? When you looked at it, what did you like about it? And maybe what appeals to you the least. Kind of hone in on what that happens to be. This does two things for you. First of all, it gives you important feedback on the things that they did like. So if for some reason they just didn't like that, man, I like this, I like the Shakeology, but that workout program looks really intense. I'm not sure if I'm ready for that. Boom, that's good feedback, right? Or if they say, I really, really like everything, but boy, it's just kind of expensive for me. Okay, good. Now you kind of know where you need to go. Again, the point of this is to get feedback, all right? Is to get feedback on this. The good thing about it is that information will set you up for this next stage. So that's the third stage. We share information and we get feedback. Now we go on to the fourth phase, which I call assuming success. The reason why I call it this and not closing or any other kind of thing that you've probably heard before is because I really want you to look at those words. Assume success, all right? And the reason is because the first three phases have armed you with an incredible amount of information and have really helped you develop a motivated prospect at this point. So what you need to do is make their decision to start easy. You need to assume success, all right? So this is what I mean by this, okay? So what I'll see some coaches do is something that's very ineffective. They'll say, hey, all right, sounds like this challenge pack's a good fit. All that's left for you to do is to get out your credit card so we can get that pack paid for. So if you're not sure about this, let's make sure we talk about it again before you make this commitment. Now, I'm kind of going on an extreme here, but sometimes you'll see a coach that will get so nervous about not being salesy or not pushy or making sure that they understand that they can get out if they want to. It's not a big deal. Hey, you're not going to offend me. That they, in the actual moment of closing or getting them to make a decision, we confuse the heck out of them. We seed all their minds with doubts and with concerns. And, oh my gosh, is this real? That's a real good point. Is that really something that I want to do? And it's unnecessary. I've seen effective closes, okay, or effective things where I see, that's awesome. I'm glad that you think this is a fit for you. So are you ready to get started? And again, that's a lot more effective, right? But here's what I'm telling you. The most effective is to assume success. And because it is that moment when anyone makes that decision to buy something, there's always that moment they're like, man, I think I'm making the right decision here. I'm kind of excited about this, but boy, is this the right one? And one of the best things that you can do is make them feel super good about it by just assuming success, right? Hey, you're going to love this. I'm so excited to work with you. Now, I'm going to send you a link real quick so I can help you get started. Now, you see in that how I've kind of assumed success. I'm assumed that they're ready to go. I've assumed that they're ready, and I'm not putting them in a position where they have to go, wait, let me think. Am I really ready to make this decision? Let me think about this. Have I thought about this enough? Have I pondered this? And we're not creating that moment of anxiety for the person. And it's not manipulative, you guys. If we've done all the steps before, this becomes a very natural thing. In fact, it will feel incredibly natural to the prospect to just assume success because each phase that they've gone through, as you progress through it, they've been saying yes, yes, yes. And if they get to this point, it's because they've said yes all the way through this. And so in most cases, I'm ready to go, okay? Assuming success lowers the pressure and it communicates confidence on your part. Now, trust me, I promise you, if they have questions, they'll stop you, right? They'll say, oh, wait, you know what? You'll say, hey, let me send you a link, right? And I'll help you get started. And they're like, oh, wait. Maybe they'll say, oh, hey, I'm not sure I'm ready for that. Okay, great. Oh, no problem at all. What are you unsure about, right? And they'll stop you if they still have questions. So assume success, okay? Don't assume that just by giving someone the information that you don't need to help make the decision to help them start. And what I mean by that is one of the things that I'll see coaches do is they'll share all the information and then they just don't do anything. I've shared them this, I've talked about this, and in your mind you're thinking, oh, well, they'll just tell me if they want to do this or not. They'll just tell me if they're ready. And I'm telling you, you can't do that. When we talk about assuming success, we're helping people make the decision to start. We're making that as smooth and as easy as possible for them. We're lowering the pressure on that moment, on that decision to get started. But you have to ask for the decision to get started. You have to create that moment for people. Don't just assume because they have the information that they get it, okay? Now, the biggest mistakes that people make when asking for a decision, okay? I'll talk about that later. That's a note to myself. Okay, so now, this is the one I know. I'm watching you guys' messages as you come through, okay? So overcoming concerns. So actually, I'm going to address this one. Christy, you just said, so if you do that and then check back the next day and nothing's gone through, do you then message them and ask if they had a problem with the link? Absolutely, and I'll get to that when I talk through the follow-up, okay? Again, we're assuming success. We're assuming, hey, they've given all these things, and that's what, we're just going to assume success until they tell us otherwise, okay? So as we go through this now, this is where, and it'll happen earlier on, right? So you'll have concerns and questions that come up earlier on, and this might be a time when they come up as well. I've chosen right now to talk about it, just to keep all the continuity of the first 4 phases. But I want to talk about just for a second about concerns. When people have questions or concerns. Now, when that comes up, does that mean that you're a bad coach? This is a very rhetorical question, because I know all of you know to say, well, no, of course it doesn't mean I'm a bad coach. But knowing it here and knowing it here sometimes can be 2 different things. One of the things that can be very difficult for inexperienced coaches to do in this process of getting yes, helping people get started, is dealing when there's pushback, when there's questions, when there's concerns. But that's going to be a big part of it. Don't you have those same questions and things? Don't you approach things that same way whenever you're making a decision? And so it's not a reflection on you. You can't internalize other people's doubts or concerns, or even if they say no, that's their decision. And you respect that and you support them in it. And that's it. You don't make that pressure on them to validate you, right? Remember what I said yesterday. When it comes to helping someone go through these phases of inviting, you got to take yourself out of the equation. It's not about you, it's about them, okay? And especially when it comes to overcoming concerns, because when people give you concerns, one of the things that I'll ask you this way. Would you rather have someone respond with a concern, or would you rather have someone not respond at all? Well, of course, you'd rather them respond with a concern, right? That shows a level of trust. That shows a level of commitment to the relationship, to what you're doing. And so overcoming concerns are actually a good thing. If you think about it. When you hear concerns, that's actually a good thing. Now, how we view concerns is important. Here's a couple things I want to push on you a little bit. When you hear concerns, remember, it's a chance to continue the dialogue. It's better than not responding at all. It's an opportunity to get more information. When they have concerns, they're giving you more information. And that information is invaluable to you as a coach to help them match solutions, overcome doubt, figure things out. Because remember, you guys, they're coming to you, especially as a coach. The majority of people you're going to talk to are not good at making positive decisions in terms of their health and fitness. And so you're asking them to do that. And it's not something that they're very good at. And so you're going to have to kind of work with them to make that decision. That's that first moment of coaching. When you're believing in them, when everyone else is saying, no, don't worry about it, right? And you're the one that's standing up saying, no, I know you can do this. And I know you're not used to doing it. And I know these decisions intimidate you, but that's why you've got me. That's why you've got a coach. That's what I'm going to be here for. So I'm not going to let you off the hook easy just because you think it might be hard, because I know it's important to you. You've told me why it's important to you. And I'm going to be here to help you see that you can do it. Okay? And that information happens when they give you concerns. Through the process of addressing concerns, it allows you to increase trust and demonstrate your intent. Because people know when they give you a concern. Honestly, packed into every concern is a little antenna that they put on it that says, does this person care about me or do they care about the sale? Now, they know that you want to make a sale. Like I talked about yesterday, you're not surprising anyone. They know that you're motivated to have them buy a challenge pack. So stop pretending like they don't know that. They know that, okay? But what they're really looking for is what's more important to them, me or making money? And so when they give that concern, boy, a couple things just remember that, okay? That intent really is watch that. So make sure, ask questions, demonstrate that appropriately. What you hear impacts how you respond. So when someone has a concern and they say no, instead of hearing no and feeling like there's this big blockade and your world's over and you're a horrible coach because everyone says no, what I want you to hear is not right now. When I hear not right now instead of no, what I'm thinking with not right now is, okay, awesome. I need to just stay in contact with them because down the road it might be the right time. So I'll respond differently to that. Hey, do you mind if I just stay in contact with you from time to time when stuff comes up that you might be interested in or something like that, right? I don't shut down. Instead of hearing too expensive, oh my gosh, that's really expensive. If I hear that, I start to freak out. I'm like, oh my gosh, here it is again. It's the price thing. You know, people don't want to spend anything. Sure, they spend like $150 a month on coffee at Starbucks, but you know, what over here, all of a sudden, this is this monumental expense I'm putting on their family and all this. Instead of going there, don't hear that. What I want you to hear is, okay, they don't see the value yet. I haven't helped them see the value in it yet. So when they say it's too expensive, I don't have to get defensive. It's instructive to me. That means now I just need to help them see the value a little bit more. I need to help convey that, hey, you know what, when you have a Shakeology for breakfast, right? Think of the money you said. Where can you get a meal that healthy for $4 or $5 depending on where you live, right? I could save money on your bill. I can understand. Hey, doesn't everyone want to be careful with their finances? I know I do, right? I don't blame them for saying, hey, it's kind of expensive. I'm kind of wanting to make sure it's the right decision because it's $200 or it's $160. Great, I think we can all relate to that. So relate to it and then tell them your thoughts. Tell them how you've kind of thought about that and processed that in your own mind, how you see the value and build that value in Shakeology, okay? When you hear them say, I'm not ready to commit, or that program looks too hard, or it's too long, or I don't know if I can do it, I'm so busy, whatever that happens to be, what you have to hear is not that, where you get defensive and you have to justify it or prove it to them. What you hear is, I don't see myself being able to do it yet. And so then you focus on the things that will show them that, hey, you can do it. And I know it's hard to make these changes, but if we don't make changes, then we're going to stay the same. And one of the best things about you making this change is you're going to get me with you. I'm going to be supporting you on this. You can do it, okay? Now, when it comes to overcoming concerns, again, just like everything I talked about yesterday, intent matters. So here's what I would recommend you doing. Practice. I know it sounds silly. Role play. I know that scares a lot of you, but role play. Get with your teams. Get on a Zoom call. Put up an objection and say, let's practice how we're going to talk about this. Let's practice how we would address this. And role play. And the reason is because even though you're talking, and most of you will do it through the computer, whether it comes out of your mouth or through your fingers, it starts in the same place, which is in your brain. And so let's say, look, that for any coach, common objections are going to be price or time or spouse support, okay? Those things will all be there. So why would we just send a new coach into that situation without having armed them with at least some experience through practice on how to handle that? So practice that. And the nice thing about it when you practice is that now when it comes up, you have less of that feeling, and it kind of feels like, okay, this is part of it, and you can focus on my intent. My intent is on the person. I'm not trying to prove anything to them. I'm not trying to justify anything to them. Here's what we talk about. Let's have a conversation. Let's figure this out. Let's talk through this, okay? Now, how you approach the concern determines the ultimate outcome much more than the concern itself. Some of you might not believe me, but I promise you from my experience, how I approach that concern is going to be much more impactful in determining the ultimate outcome than whatever their concern was. So if their concern is it's too expensive, how I approach that concern, meaning Do I try to prove to them it's not? Do I take do I help them see the value in it, like I talked about a little bit more? How I approach it will have a lot more of a determination on the outcome than the concern itself. So be you. That's part of the reason why I want to practice. Be you so you can respond sincerely. One of the things I'll tell coaches too is when they get these objections, especially for new coaches, and they kind of get this anxiety, start all these thoughts that are unrelated to the person creep into mind. I'm not good enough. I don't know how to answer this. Why does this concern keep coming up? I'm not a good coach. I need this person to buy this challenge pack. I need to get successful. Oh my gosh, if this person doesn't buy this pack and I'm not going to be successful, my coach is going to be mad. I'm going to be a failure my whole life. I'm going to become a hermit and live in the mountains. Okay, all these weird, crazy stuff starts to go into their mind. And if you start talking to people while that's floating in your mind, it's going to come out of you. It will come out in how you talk. And all of a sudden, my intent is going to not be to help the person. So the thing I tell them to do is, hey, when you get that response, when you see that message, just take a second, close your eyes and think, how is this going to help that person? When I think about the problem that they shared with me, I think about this, and I can imagine them having success with this program, and I can see how that will be so beneficial to them. Let that be the last thought in your mind before you start talking to them again, and watch how it changes that dynamic. Okay? Now, the thing I will say with this is as a coach, expecting not to get concerns or objections is ridiculous. Okay? No matter how good you are, you're going to get them, okay? And part of the reason is like I've been telling you, most of the people that you are talking with are not good at making positive decisions in terms of their health and fitness. That's why they need you. And helping them make the decision to start is important, okay? Okay, let me get back to that, Stephanie. Hold on one second here. So helping them, so don't shy away from the importance of your role in helping them make the decision to start. They need you for that. They'll read your reaction as a so if they get that reaction from you that's defensive or that's kind of wishy-washy or that the intent comes through, it's kind of muddy, they're going to review that as a reflection of the quality of the solution or maybe your confidence is actually going to help them. Okay, so don't shy away from that. When they get those things, just kind of come right out and talk to them. Be confident with them. Now, Stephanie just asked, what are my thoughts about using voice messaging or should it be over email? I always prefer, if it could be, in person is always best. But I know in today's world, that's not it. So I think the next closest one is voice messaging. I think them being able to hear your voice, hear the inflections of your voice, hear the concern of your voice, hear that allows you to build those connections a lot tighter. So I would always recommend that. So phone, voice messaging, texting messaging, email being one of the last ones, if you can, because it's hard to kind of communicate stuff in that way. Okay, so more practice on overcoming objections. Again, guys, when we talk about developing the skills, this is an area that you will get better at the more you do it, the more you get experience behind it through role plays, through actually doing it. If you want to get more practice, this is a tool that's available to you right now in your back office, how to overcome objections. And the thing I like about this is it gives you just different scenarios, price, they didn't respond to me, blah, 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 and then it just gives you some ideas on how to answer it. And it's not that I want you to use this as a script, okay? I think scripts are good in some areas, but I think people can also tell when they've been copied a script. And I would much rather have you read a script and say, okay, I see what it's trying to say, and then how would I type that out? And then I type that out, and then I type it up so it's in my own words, rather than copying scripts. Because I think all of you got those before where you've got messages and you can tell it's like, hi, blank, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and it just is like this form message. That's not a real good way to form that relationship or show intent. So keep that in mind. But this is a great tool for you to practice. Okay, so 5 phases of inviting here. So now we've talked about forming the relationship, then identifying the need with those 7 questions. We've talked about sharing the information, right? And then that real simple question, so what do you think, right? To get that feedback. And then we've talked about then assuming success, right? Really lowering the pressure to help someone get started with that. Now let's get into the last one, right? The follow-up. This is the 5th phase of inviting. And this is a really important one, you guys, because when we lay this all out, you'll get some people that'll go bam, 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 and they'll get a success, and there's no need to follow up with them, right? They get it, and that's fantastic, awesome. But a lot of your people are going to require follow-up. And so when this happens, great. don't feel bad. Don't feel like you did something wrong. It's part of the process. In fact, there's a stat I read about 6 months ago that talked about how about a little over 80% of sales happen after the third contact. Okay, the third contact. So there's follow-up that's going to take place. There's follow-up that's going to have to happen. So follow-up is really, really important. The biggest error that I see coaches make is they don't track. They don't track the people they're having conversations with. We did a survey of diamonds to 2-star diamonds that were having a really great last 4, 5, 6 months of their business, great income, great enrollments, great customer participation in their challenge groups. And one of the questions we asked was, how many people typically do you have that you're kind of prospect with, or I'm having conversations with, right? They haven't started yet, but I'm just talking back and forth and following up with them. And 85% of them said at least 10, and 50% of them said at least 20. And so when you follow up with that, what you find is these coaches have a system that works for them to track these people, whether it's a Google Doc, an Excel spreadsheet, a notebook for the old farts like me, right? Where they're tracking these people and they're making notes, right, of the different phases of the inviting process. Here's what I've learned. Here's what their need is. Here's what their constraints are. And I kind of track through that. And now I know, to go back and follow up with them. There's lots of ways to be able to do this, but the most important thing is that you're tracking it to infinity here, you guys, okay? Tracking who they are and what you know about them from a business standpoint. This is going to answer a question. Is there a preferred method of tracking? Just whatever works for you, Kim. Honestly, there's some people that really like there's more formal ones, the programs that I've heard online. The biggest thing for me is that you just do it. I don't care if you use a whiteboard, if you use Braille, if you write it in Sharpie on your calf muscle, whatever you need to do to track it, just track it. Just track it. That's the biggest thing, all right? Now, what you follow up to do really 3 things. You follow up to help someone make a decision to start, right? So again, that idea of I'm helping you make a decision. Hey, I've got that group we spoke about starting soon. I've still got that spot for you, and I'm pumped to help you to get those results we spoke about. Did you have any other questions? Or hey, I've got that group starting really soon. I sent you that link. I'm super excited to help you with you. Were you able to click on that link? Or were you able to see that link? Or did you have any questions about however you want to say that, right? We also do it to reestablish, re-engage, or reaffirm the relationship, right? This might be someone that we haven't talked to in a little while that's kind of fallen off the radar, that maybe kind of ignored us a little bit, didn't respond back to us. And we're like, hey, we want to kind of go back and see if we can re-engage or reestablish that relationship. We say something like, hey, I just saw something on Facebook today about that reminded me of you. Hope you're doing well and we can catch up soon. Something that allows you to say, hey, I remember you. I remember what I heard about you. I learned about you or whatever happened. And I was just thinking about you. How are you doing? And kind of reestablishes that. We also follow up then to keep a commitment, okay? Hey, I just had a reminder pop up to touch base with you again. Were you able to talk things over with your spouse? Meaning in this situation, they said, no, you know what? I really want to do this, but I need to talk to my husband. Great. I'll follow up with you tomorrow on that. Hey, I just had a reminder remind me to reach out to you and see if you had a chance to talk to your spouse yet. Those are really the 3 major things that we follow up on, okay? The reason why those 2 little arrows are circling right there, you guys, is because when it comes to follow-up, oftentimes we have to then go back into assume success. We follow up, we engage in that conversation, then we assume success. And it might have to be, hey, we try to help them get started and they're not ready for it. Great, I'll follow up with them again. And then I'll work my way back over. Hey, I think they're about ready to go. Oh, okay, then. And we go through it a couple times, like I said, at least 3 times. And for 80% of cases, according to the study that I read, of that little circle to go through around at least 3 times before they actually made the decision to get started, okay? And so that's the 5 phases of inviting, you guys. Yes, I can go back. I'm also going to post these slides right after the training here. So, but I'll leave it up for just a second. No hand cramps. No hand cramps are necessary during this training. All right. I'll give it just a second here. Okay. If you followed up with someone and eventually say, I'll contact you when I'm ready, should we expect that and not follow up again? Follow up to our block, haha. Okay. So if you follow up with someone like, hey, you know what? I'll contact you when I'm ready. Thank you so much. I would honestly at that point, the word I usually give people safe harbor is, hey, thank you so much. And you know what? I really don't want to come across as, I'm not trying to be pushy or anything. I was excited to help you with this. And then maybe I would say something like, well, I would ask for referrals, right? it doesn't sound like it's the right time for you, but is there anyone that you know or can think of that that I might be able to help, or see if I have something that can fit for them? Or it might be something where I will also try to say, hey, maybe just ask permission. Hey, I get that, but as things come up, I think you really might be interested. Do you mind if I just shoot them your way? And if they're like, no, don't leave me alone, then I would just say, great, hey, no big deal. Thank you so much for chatting with me on this. And if you ever have anything I do to help you with, let me know. I'm here for you. And then you just kind of, back off from that, and you make a note of it somewhere. Or ask if I can follow up on the further end. I have lots of those, and that's okay. That's okay. Guys, you will have people. And again, when we talk about objections, when we talk about those things that come out, say, it's not a good time for me right now. I think that, again, what I said before is it's not. Shouldn't be unexpected. These people are not good at making positive decisions for their health and fitness. Okay, you're trying to be the one that helps them, so you kind of got to push it a little bit, but we're not trying to ruin the relationship, right? You can even just tell them, say, hey, you know what? I know my experience has been that sometimes that getting started is really hard, so I'd like to just really make sure that it's there isn't some way I can help you, but boy, I'm not trying to be overly pushy. I sure appreciate that feedback. And then if you'll find that, if you'll maintain that intent of helping them, people rarely resent you following up with them if they feel like your intent is sincere. The times when people start getting resentful is if you're pestering, right? If they just say no, then really, if they've said no a couple times, respect it. But also then if they come across and they feel like you're just trying to get a sale from them, that I think is when they start to kind of resent a little bit. So if our intent is right, I think we'll be okay. All right. Question with follow-up. I've been emailing my leads and some have not replied. Do I just keep following up every week, or how do you deal with that? I wouldn't just keep following up, just beating them up until they finally submit or tell you to stop talking to them. When you follow up with an email, I would have kind of a plan where maybe I drip on them, once or twice right away, and then maybe a third time a little bit farther on down the road. But at some point, you want to not pester them. You don't want to have a negative relationship with them. Okay. I have individuals I've been telling them don't sign up. Okay, so we've got one here. It says, let me just go back to this. Hold on, scrolling up. Oh my gosh. Don't sign up, and then I follow up, contact me. Okay, so the question is, I have two individuals I've been telling for months that are ready and don't sign up. Then I follow up or even contact me asking questions, but that does not finalize. Then I follow up with no answer, but they do contact me after a while for questions. How would you handle that one? That's a really good question. I would probably go back and make sure that you kind of dialed in what their need is, because it doesn't sound like their need's very urgent. It doesn't sound like their need's very big, or they don't realize that. I would probably maybe step back in some of those phases to make sure that I've got that dialed in first. And then if you've got that dialed in and they're just being non-committal, honestly, that's where you just have to be patient. You can decide how much time you allocate to those kind of people. You don't want to spend a lot of time chasing all those people. There's a certain amount of follow-up that you have to do, but we don't want to chase people because that also sets a bad precedent that when they do get in their challenge group, they just kind of become attention hogs and all that kind of stuff, and they're not really committed to making the program work for themselves. And so you want to make sure you establish that relationship off the bat. Okay, I think there was one more question, then we'll keep going. Okay, good. All right, Craig, I hunt him down. I wouldn't want Craig hunting me down. Craig's a nice guy, but having Craig hunt me would be a challenge. Okay, so let's keep going here. Now, when we talk about these 5 processes that we've gone through, you guys, I know in these trainings, it's like the job is to make it simple enough that you can understand it, that you can understand the concepts and the principles and have takeaways that you can start putting in place to improve your effectiveness. But I also understand, you guys, that it's never as clean cut in training in real life as it is in training. I get that. It's different. It's messier because we're talking to people. And people sometimes stop in certain phases and then they pick up or they want to regress or whatever it ends up being. And I know that. The point of the training is, you guys, when you understand the principles behind the 5 phases, when you have this developing the skills to identify those needs and move people through them like we've talked about, it allows you to be better as a coach. It sets you up for success a lot more as a coach. It puts yourself DeWitt Jones, one of our summit speakers, said, it puts yourself in the position of highest potential for success with your inviting. Here's the thing I want you to remember. I wish it were possible Okay, all of you have probably seen The Matrix, right? Where they lay people in those chairs and they jam that needle in their brain and they put a chip in and it uploads like all the experience of a ninja master, and all of a sudden that person's a ninja master, right? I wish it was possible for us to do that today, right? I could lay you in a chair, we could stick a needle in your brain, we come out and do a training and do this, and I could upload all of the inviting experience of a Melanie Mitro or of a Megan Ewaldson or some coach that everybody knows about. But until that technology exists, the only way you're going to get that experience is by doing it. And when you're doing this, when you're learning a new skill like what we've been talking about, you're not going to be perfect. And the point is not to hold yourself to an impossible standard of perfection. This is one of my favorite quotes from The Go-Giver. It's to invest yourself consciously in everything you do, like inviting, like trying to help people, okay? With the intention of bringing to bear your greatest abilities to the task at hand, to do the very best that I can, okay? Because it's really about creating a habit of excellence for yourself, where I do my very best and every time to help somebody, because when I do that, that's when I learn the most. That's when I learn the most. And I'm gonna end with this story because hopefully it'll help you guys understand this concept. I call it inviting in the perfect paint job, okay? So when we moved into my house 8 years ago, one of the things that stood out to me was the banister. This is not my house, by the way. If it was my house, you'd see laundry on the floor, maybe some dog puke and some other stuff, right? But so I got this one. But we have on our banister, on our stairs, there were these columns that looked kind of like these ones actually. And I remember looking at those, and I was blown away because they were painted, but the paint was so smooth that it almost looked like they were plastic. Like I thought they were plastic at first. And I don't know about you guys, but that's been something that's always fascinated me, is how people can make paint that smooth. And I found out after we'd been in the house for a few months that actually the guy who painted our house, who had painted those posts, that banister, lived in our neighborhood. He was a professional painter and he got the job. And we had a barbecue over my house to kind of get to know the neighbors. And he came over and I asked him, I said, hey, I got to ask you a question. Because when I paint, it's got streaks in it. It's got paintbrush lines in it. I mean, it's got texture from the roller. It's got all kinds of stuff in it. So I said, how do you make paint look like that? Is it some, sprayer that you use? And in my mind, I was thinking there's this secret, right? He says, well, I was expecting him to say, you take your paint and then you add like a half a cup of turpentine and some little bit of paint thinner, and then you mix it around with the tongue sticking out of your mouth. So there's some secret, right, to making this paint look like this. And he looked at me and he goes, it's really easy. And he goes, it's patience. I was like, patience? I was really let down. I wanted the secret to it. And he's telling me it's patience. And I said, well, what do you mean by patience? And he goes, well, let me tell you how it works. He says, the first thing you do is you prep the surface. You sand it all down, you get it smooth. And I'm like, check, I got that. And he goes, once that's all done, he goes, then you put on a thin layer of paint. And I'm like, a thin layer. Instantly in my mind, I'm like, well, that's my problem right there. That's my problem, because whenever I paint, like if my wife says, we need to paint this wall, and she's like, I think it's going to need 3 coats of paint. In my mind, I'm going, I bet if I put on one really thick coat, it'll cover it up in one time. I don't think about the patience side of this whole thing. So he goes, I put on a thin coat of paint. And I was like, okay. And he goes, and after it dries, I sand it. And I'm like, whoa. You sand it? And he says, yeah, you run your hand over it and you feel the bumps. And he goes, in the beginning, it's almost all rough. And so you sand it down. And he goes, it doesn't remove all the paint, but it just removes those imperfections. And he goes, after you sand it, you clean it up, and then you put on another thin coat of paint. And then after that dries, you come with your sander, you fill out the imperfections, you sand those out, and then you put another coat on. And then you sand out the imperfections, and then you put another coat on, and then you sand out the imperfections. And he goes, and you do that, sanding and painting, until you paint that last layer and you look at it, and it looks like that. Here's what I hope you take away from that. A lot of you on this call, when it comes to having success with inviting, first, you're thinking there's some secret there. There's not. Just like there wasn't a secret formula for that paint. So stop looking for the secrets and just learn the freaking skills. The second thing is patience. Getting the experience to become a really good inviter, if you will, or helping people get started. That takes experience, you guys. It doesn't happen overnight. You're sitting there and you have a handful, a dozen, 2 dozen bad experiences, and you beat yourself up about it, and you're convinced that you suck at coaching and I'm never going to be successful, and I'm looking over at someone that's like a 10-star diamond, and when they talk it seems so easy, and oh my gosh, if I could just be like that, it would be this, and I'm comparing myself. Well, here's the deal. You're comparing your dozen layers of sanding and painting to someone who's done it hundreds and thousands of times. That's not a fair comparison. You haven't paid the price yet to be that good. You'll get there, but it's going to take a lot of sanding and painting. And so the next time you're there and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to do an invite, and you're like, holy crap, like that was horrible. Like you do an invite and maybe you verbally vomit it all over, and you're going, oh my gosh, that's like you put that paint job back, like, oh my gosh, that didn't work. You bring out your sandpaper and you sand out that imperfection. Does that mean you stop? No. You invite again. I put on another layer of paint. And that time I was like, okay, that one went a little bit better, but oh my gosh, this didn't work out too well. I sand that out. I don't internalize it. I don't beat myself up about it. I don't judge my whole family, my value as a person. And all that stuff comes into play. I'm getting better. I'm learning through the process. It's sanding and painting and sanding and painting. And as long as I keep sanding and painting, at some point, you're going to get that paint job. You're going to get to that point where it just comes out of you, and you talk to people, and it's almost natural for you to find out what that need is and to match that solution and to be able to get them. It's like, and all of a sudden it just feels easier, and it's like it's effortless to get people to start and to get going. And then people look at you and they're like, man, how do they do that? If I was like that guy, then that gal, then I would be amazing. Oh my gosh, and you're going to look at them and say, how do you do it? And you're going to go, just a lot of layers of paint, a lot of sanding, and a lot of painting, okay? So as we wrap up this training, I want you to think about that. How can I increase the number of people that I'm starting conversations with and going through these 5 phases with? Not only because it helps me grow my business, but it helps me become a better coach and be better at what I do, okay? Stop internalizing it. Stop being impatient with that process, okay? You can do it. You can do it, I promise you guys. It's been a lot of fun for me, guys, to do this training with you. Maybe from time to time we'll do more of these trainings on the Champions page. I really, really enjoy talking with you guys. So what I'll do now, if you have any questions or comments or whatever, just go ahead and put them in the chat log. I'll go through it. When we're done here, I'll wait for the Zoom call to process. I'll upload it to YouTube. I'll post the slides today and this as well, and then we'll go from there, you guys. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks, guys, for sticking with me on this. It's been phenomenal. I just can't tell you how much it means to me to be able to work with you guys. So thank you guys so much. We'll see you soon. Bye now.